Hey, what's up everyone? Zach D Productions here, and I'm here with Bryan Delivers You the Goods. And we are going to go over 5 movies that we have changed our mind on, changed our opinion on, of course. So 5 films for each of us. So I'm going to go ahead and go first. The list is in no particular order, so keep that in mind. So the first movie I think I'm going to go over here is Ip Man 4 with Donnie Yen. Now, Donnie Yen, I do like him as an actor and as a martial artist. I think what he does very well. But I would say that Ip Man 4 is easily the weakest Ip Man film of the Donnie Yen saga, at least. I mean, there was a moment in time where I actually really liked this movie. In fact, I thought it was a great movie. But as time has gone on, my opinion on this film has definitely changed. I really don't care for this movie too much nowadays. I mean, it really doesn't bring anything new to the table. I mean, I would honestly say the main standout for me, at least, and I'm sure it's a standout for a lot of you as well, is the fight between Donnie Yen and Scott Adkins at the end of the film. I mean, that to me was really the main highlight of the film. I mean, if I wanted to see Donnie Yen doing his martial arts thing, I would just rather watch the first 3, especially those first 2 movies. Now, the third film I think is okay, but that's another film you could say I've changed my mind on slightly, but I still think that movie is okay. But when it comes to the Ip Man films, I would say that the first 2 are the best, and I would definitely recommend checking those out if you like martial arts films. But Ip Man 4, this is definitely one that I've changed my mind on. I'm not really the biggest fan of this movie now, so there's that. So the next movie, now this one might be controversial, I don't know, but I mean, I guess this one is more for the positive side of things, and that is Jaws. Now, Jaws was once a movie that I, believe it or not, did not like at all. I actually hated this movie whenever I first watched it. I'm not really sure why, because obviously Jaws is such a classic and such an essential creature feature flick, an essential shark flick, whatever you want to say about it. It's really hard to describe my complaint with Jaws whenever I didn't like it, but my opinion has changed drastically, for the better, of course. I really like the movie Jaws now. It's definitely a classic, and for those that don't know, Jaws actually celebrates 50 years this year. This film came out in 1975, so definitely a classic. I mean, what is there to say about Jaws that hasn't already been said already? So, yeah, there was a time where I actually didn't like the film, which I know might be blasphemous because I know for a lot of you, Jaws is your favorite movie of all time. And you know what? That's great. But there was a time where I actually didn't like Jaws at all. But now, I really do like the film. In fact, I would consider myself a fan of Jaws. So that's definitely a positive. So the next film on my list, you could argue, is another creature feature, Jurassic World, the first Jurassic World movie from 2015, just for clarification. This is maybe by far my favorite of the Jurassic World films. Now, I don't think there was ever really a point where I disliked it necessarily, but whenever I first watched Jurassic World, I thought it was just okay. I didn't really get into it too much. Like, I wasn't really invested in it too much. But as I've given this film more chances, as I've given this film more watches, I've learned to really appreciate this film. And now I really like the film. I think it's a great movie. And it's got a pretty decent cast as well. I mean, you do have Bryce Dallas Howard in the film. You have Chris Pratt. Decent cast, I would say. And a very good movie. And the CGI actually doesn't look bad. I mean, the way the dinosaurs look are pretty good. I mean, I don't think they look bad. So, Jurassic World, very good movie, I would say. A film that I've definitely changed my mind on for the better. From just thinking it was just okay, kind of just meh, to really digging the film. Now, it doesn't come anywhere near the original trilogy, the Jurassic Park films, but still a very good movie, I would say. So, Jurassic World had to make the list. So the next film up, we've got Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, I did see this in the theater around when this came out, and I do like the Thor movies for the most part. Mainly the first 3, although The Dark World's kind of meh. I don't think that film has really held up that well, in my opinion. But I do like the first Thor movie, probably the best of the Thor films. And then Ragnarok, which is probably the second best, but I think that film's kind of overrated, but still decent, I would say. But as for Love and Thunder, I will say I did like this movie around when it came out, when I saw it in theaters. But over time, I just thought to myself, yeah, it's not really that great. So I just have no desire to rewatch this one. I don't think it's held up all that well, to be honest, and I think many of you would agree with me on that. I mean, when it comes to a lot of these Marvel movies, they seem like they just come and go. I just don't really care to rewatch this one. Maybe at some point I will, but I doubt my opinion on it will really change. So yeah, I went from liking it to not really liking it so much. So Thor, Love and Thunder, that's making the list too. So the last film, the 5th film for my list, is Avatar: The Way of Water. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I think the Avatar films are extremely overrated. I don't understand the hype with these movies. If any of you could tell me what the hype is with these movies and what that's all about, feel free to let me know in the comments, because I just personally don't get it. And honestly, when it comes to the Avatar movies, I prefer the first one over the second one, to be honest. And even in saying that, I don't really watch the first one all that much. I mean, when it comes to James Cameron's movies, I'd very much rather watch the Terminator films. But when it comes to the Avatar movies, I just find them extremely overrated. With that said, there was a time where I did kind of like these movies, even The Way of Water in particular. I thought that that was a pretty good movie, and I gave it a chance, and I'm like, yeah, it's not bad, but I guess I just didn't want to be honest with myself and say that I was kind of bored throughout most of the film. And yeah, I was just kind of bored. I can't get into that universe. I'm sorry, guys. And look, if you're a fan of the Avatar movies, to each their own, more power to you. But they're just personally not for me. Like, I'm not really that interested in the world of the Avatar universe, and I'm not really invested in the characters that much. There's a time where I did like the Avatar films, and even The Way of Water. Now, I emphasize The Way of Water more than the first film for this list, because the first film I still think is decent, but The Way of Water I think is worse. The movie is also way too long. I mean, again, it kind of just bored me, and it was way too long. So I prefer movies that are more on the shorter side, but that's just me. So those were some films that I've changed my mind on. Let me know what you think of my choices. So with that said, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. So next, Bryan delivers you the goods. So take it away, Bryan.
Hey guys, Bryan delivers you the goods here, doing a collab video with Zach D Productions on this movies I've watched but changed my mind on. So I'm going to list off 5 movies that I've watched but changed my mind on. Let's dive into these movies that I want to talk about. So, starting with the Justice League 2017 film from 2017. Not the Zack Snyder version, the original one before the Zack Snyder version. So pretty much with this one, it's not good. At first, my opinion was I thought it was a strong movie, probably movie of the year. Now, looking back at it, it has a lot of problems, this movie. Like Ben Affleck, for instance, being a fucking dick as Batman. And then Ezra Miller in the film, what's your superpower? He says, I'm rich. Even though Ezra Miller has a lot of fucking backlash behind him and a lot of controversy, but he is a scumbag after all. He does a lot of fucked up shit. But that's my number 5 pick. Number 4 is The Little Mermaid 2023 adaptation, the live adaptation. So, Halle Bailey was the one that played Ariel in this film. I wouldn't say she was a bad choice, but I would say there is a lot of issues with the film. The performance was pretty strong from her. Everyone else kind of just was like, this movie's kind of decent. It's a movie I don't hate, but I've changed my opinion on a little. And overall, it just was a movie that I couldn't really come back to a lot and appreciate. It was alright, but it wasn't great. My rating kind of changed for this film as time went on. Alright, number 3 is Civil War. As time went on, when I watched this film in 2024, I started growing distant from this film. I watched it once. I never watched it again because I felt very uninterested in the film. The performances were kind of meh and not very good. I mean, the story and the dialogue didn't really make sense. It just was a confusing, manish kind of movie. Like, how the movie ended was like, what the fuck happened? So, this movie has changed my opinion on it as time went on. And yeah, 6 out of 10 is deserving for it. It's meh. It's not one of the worst films, but it's not one of the best films. Number 2 is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I think Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was quite a letdown. It was a bad film, honestly. I am not a fan of the last few Star Wars films. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker for this film was like, so we still don't know where Rey came from, how she knows about the Force, how it took all the way to Rise of Skywalker to find out that she was a fucking Palpatine. And it was like, well, this movie sucks. So, even George Lucas would disapprove of these kinds of films because they were trash. Like, the ending was so bad that everyone said, I fucking hate Star Wars. I saw that fucking clip, actually, which I kind of hate Star Wars films now. I like the original Star Wars films. I don't like 7 through 9. There are some issues with those movies. And they are a bunch of cluttery, utter garbage kind of films now. Last Jedi being the worst, but we'll talk about that in a second. It's just some things they decided to do in these films ruined and killed the reception of the movie. So, yeah, fuck Rise of Skywalker. It sucks ass. And finally, at number 1 is Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is a movie that I thought I was gonna try to understand for a time, but it was a confusing clusterfuck as well. Star Wars The Last Jedi was a terrible film. It's a laughable film. That's pretty much my list. Number 1 was the final one, Star Wars The Last Jedi. My opinion changed on it through time, and I thought it sucked. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about these movies that I kinda like, most of them I really dislike, but these are movies I've watched that I've changed my mind on, and my opinion on. And with that being said, hope you enjoyed this, me and Zach D Productions' collab video, and thank you guys for watching my take on it. Have a good one.